he is a vulnerable guy, and he is a flawed man, and capable of making mistakes.
Bruce Willis has never been the type to sugarcoat anything. On screen, he was the wisecracking tough guy who always got the last word. Off-screen, pretty much the same. For all his blockbuster fame, Willis carried a reputation for being brutally honest, sometimes to the point of starting feuds. And in Hollywood, where egos run wild, that meant enemies. Let's look into the 6 actors Bruce Willis couldn't stand working with. Number 6, Kevin Smith, the director who called him soul-crushing. Picture this. It's 2010, and Bruce Willis, already a legend thanks to Die Hard and a dozen other hits, signs on to do a buddy cop comedy called Cop Out. Sounds like a blast, right? Willis cracking wise, Tracy Morgan going full Tracy Morgan, and Kevin Smith, Hollywood's king of stoner smart comedy, directing the chaos. It should have been popcorn gold, except it wasn't. Not even close. Behind the scenes, the vibe wasn't buddy comedy, it was more like hostage situation. Kevin Smith, bless him, came in thinking he was about to direct one of his heroes. He grew up watching Willis save Nakatomi Plaza and take down terrorists. How cool would it be to give the guy some funny lines and let him play? But according to Smith, reality smacked him in the face almost immediately. Instead of playful banter, Willis brought a storm cloud to set. Smith later said directing him was soul-crushing, which is basically director speak for, "This guy made me question every career choice I've ever made." And Smith wasn't quiet about it. He ranted on podcasts. He joked about it in interviews. He practically turned it into part of his stand-up routine. His stories painted Willis as the kind of actor who shows up, folds his arms, and dares you to tell him what to do. Meanwhile, Tracy Morgan was bouncing around like a ball of sunshine, improvising and laughing, leaving Smith with whiplash from the contrast. Imagine trying to run a comedy set, where one star is the life of the party, and the other looks like he'd rather be stuck in traffic. Bruce, of course, didn't waste his breath firing back in public. That wasn't his style, but people close to the production say he thought Smith was out of his depth, like a fanboy who somehow got handed the keys to a studio movie. Smith's loose, goofy way of running a set clashed hard with Bruce's old-school approach. Bruce came from the era of serious directors, the kind who bark orders and run a tight ship. To him, Smith probably looked like he was winging it, and Bruce Willis wasn't about to take notes from a guy who made Clerks. The result? Tension you could cut with a knife. The movie itself reflected it too. Cop Out hit theaters and thud. Critics pounced. The jokes felt flat, the chemistry forced, and a lot of reviewers singled out Willis for phoning it in. For a guy famous for owning the screen with charisma, it was jarring to see him look like he'd checked out. Kevin Smith didn't let it slide. Oh no, he doubled down, saying Willis could have saved the movie if he'd just cared. Instead, he claimed, Bruce dragged the whole thing down, and Smith's bitterness never faded. Even years later, he still brings it up, sometimes laughing, sometimes sighing, but always with the same punchline. Working with Bruce Willis was a nightmare. Fans ate it up because Hollywood feuds are catnip. On one side, you had Smith, the underdog storyteller spilling tea like your best friend after 2 glasses of wine. On the other, Willis, the untouchable action god who didn't even bother to clap back. It was messy, it was awkward, and it was pure entertainment. And honestly, it fits Bruce's brand. The guy never cared about smoothing things over or playing nice for appearances. If he didn't respect you, you felt it. Kevin Smith definitely felt it. And that's why, when people ask him about Cop Out, he doesn't just groan, he practically relives the trauma in real time. For Bruce, though, it was just Tuesday. But if Bruce's clashes with directors were fiery, his battles with co-stars could be downright icy. None more famous than his tense relationship with Cybill. Number 5. Cybill Shepherd. Sparks on screen, ice off screen. Before Bruce Willis was blowing up skyscrapers and dodging bullets barefoot, he was just a sharp-tongued private detective on TV's Moonlighting. And if you've ever watched the show, you know the chemistry between Bruce and co-star Cybill Shepherd was electric. The banter? Legendary. The flirting? Off the charts. They were the will-they-won't-they couple of the 80s, pulling in millions of viewers every week. But here's the thing. Nobody told you while you were laughing at their one-liners. That chemistry was pure smoke and mirrors. Behind the cameras, Bruce and Cybill couldn't stand each other. Now, it's not unusual for co-stars to butt heads. Spending 14-hour days together under hot lights is basically a recipe for drama. But Bruce and Cybill's feud went beyond the usual "you stole my trailer snacks" kind of spat. Reports from the set say they clashed over everything: call times, line deliveries, even the length of breaks. If Cybill wanted something one way, Bruce wanted it the opposite. If Bruce cracked a joke, Cybill rolled her eyes. Their relationship was less rom-com and more divorce court, and yet somehow the tension worked like magic on screen. The more they annoyed each other in real life, the sharper their barbs sounded in the show. Viewers thought they were watching two people with sizzling attraction. In reality, they were watching two professionals using real irritation as fuel. Basically, Moonlighting was one long televised lovers' quarrel without the love. The show's crew had a front-row seat to the fireworks. Directors complained about endless delays because the stars wouldn't cooperate. Production dragged because Bruce and Cybill argued between takes. At one point, the tension got so bad that crew members jokingly referred to the set as a combat zone. And while fans adored the witty repartee, insiders knew it was draining everyone's sanity. Cybill, for her part, never hid her feelings. She's admitted in interviews that the friction was real and exhausting. Bruce wasn't shy either. He called the experience difficult, which is Hollywood code for, "if I never see this person again, it'll be too soon." Yet, both of them also admitted the show worked because of that same friction. Without the bite, without the sparks, Moonlighting might have been just another forgettable detective series. Things got even messier when Bruce's star began to rise outside of television. In 1988, Die Hard hit theaters, and suddenly he wasn't just the guy from that TV show. He was a global action hero. That didn't exactly help soothe tensions with Cybill, who'd been the bigger name when Moonlighting started. The balance of power on set shifted, and it only made the situation pricklier. Imagine going to work with someone you already clash with, only to watch them skyrocket into superstardom while you're stuck in the trenches with studio deadlines. Fans were devastated when Moonlighting ended in 1989, but insiders knew it was inevitable. By then, Bruce was too big for TV, and the feud had made production a nightmare. The official line was creative exhaustion, but anyone paying attention could see that Bruce and Cybill were never going to sign up for another season of emotional trench warfare. Still, the legacy of their rocky partnership is fascinating. The show is remembered as one of the sharpest, funniest series of the decade, largely because of the very tension that made life miserable for its stars. It's the ultimate irony. The thing that nearly broke the show behind the scenes is exactly what made it unforgettable on screen. Looking back, both Bruce and Cybill have softened their words a little. Age has a way of dulling old grudges. But when fans ask about the glory days of Moonlighting, there's always that little wink, that unspoken acknowledgement that the sparks were real, just not the romantic kind. So, the next time someone tells you their favorite TV couple had amazing chemistry, just remember, sometimes what you're really seeing is two actors who can't wait to get away from each other. And in Bruce and Cybill's case, that tension made history. Number 4. Sylvester Stallone, Battle of the Action Titans. If Hollywood were a high school cafeteria, Bruce Willis and Sylvester Stallone would have been the two jocks at opposite ends of the table. Both legends, both larger than life, and both way too used to being the alpha in the room. So, when Stallone brought Bruce into the Expendables franchise, a series literally built on action hero bragging rights, it was only a matter of time before egos collided. At first, it looked like a dream team. Stallone, the man behind Rocky and Rambo, had assembled a squad of action icons: Jason Statham, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, basically every VHS hero you ever rented in the 80s. And of course, Bruce Willis fit right in. He'd already spent decades proving he could wisecrack his way through explosions with more charm than anyone else. Stallone cast him in The Expendables and Expendables 2 as Mr. Church, a shady government type who handed out missions. Fans went nuts. It was like watching The Avengers, but with way more testosterone. Then came Expendables 3, and oh boy, did things go south. The drama wasn't even subtle. Stallone publicly called Willis greedy and lazy after negotiations for the third film fell apart. And according to insiders, Willis was offered $3 million for 4 days of work. Yes, 4 days. He turned it down, allegedly demanding $4 million instead. Stallone didn't mince words. He hopped on Twitter. This was peak 2013 Twitter drama, mind you, and blasted Bruce in front of the entire world. Fans were stunned. Action heroes didn't usually take their beef online, but here was Stallone, firing shots like it was a boxing match. Willis, true to form, didn't bother clapping back. That was his style. Let the silence sting louder than words. But everyone knew he wasn't happy about being replaced by Harrison Ford, who swooped into the franchise without missing a beat. For Stallone, it was a power move. Swap out Bruce, bring in Han Solo, and keep the machine rolling. For Bruce, it was basically a very public breakup. The irony is that their feud wasn't just about money. It was about two titans who couldn't quite share the same spotlight. Stallone was used to being the undisputed leader of his projects. He wrote, directed, and starred in them. Bruce, on the other hand, had built a career by being the ultimate solo star. Sure, he'd work in ensembles, but let's be real, Bruce Willis was never going to play second fiddle gracefully. Fans couldn't get enough of the drama. Was Bruce really greedy, or was Stallone being dramatic? Was Stallone calling him lazy because Bruce didn't want to play along with the macho family vibe on set? Whatever the truth, the feud added a weird layer of meta-drama to the franchise. Here were the action gods, supposedly united to give fans the ultimate nostalgia trip. But in reality, they were bickering like rock stars, fighting over who gets the bigger dressing room. And the funniest part? Neither man's reputation really took a hit. Stallone kept flexing as the ringleader of his nostalgia circus. Bruce kept racking up credits, doing everything from indie dramas to direct-to-video thrillers. If anything, the feud made fans love them both more. It was like watching your favorite superheroes beef. It just made them feel more real. Of course, time has a way of smoothing rough edges. Stallone later admitted he and Bruce patched things up, calling him a stand-up guy, and saying there was no bad blood anymore. But that doesn't erase the glorious, messy months when Stallone was tweeting like a teenager and Bruce was sitting back in quiet defiance. In the end, their clash was less about hatred and more about two massive egos trying to share one stage. Think of it like Godzilla versus King Kong. Neither really wins, but the fight itself is the spectacle. And for fans of action cinema, that feud was every bit as entertaining as a helicopter exploding over a jungle. Now, what happens when Bruce finally meets another Hollywood alpha who refuses to back down? Cue Mr. Baldwin. Watch this. Number 3. Alec Baldwin. When two alphas collide, if there's one thing Hollywood loves, it's a big personality. If there are two big personalities in the same room, buckle up. That's exactly what happened when Bruce Willis and Alec Baldwin crossed paths. Both men were known for being blunt, opinionated, and allergic to sugarcoating anything. Translation? It was oil and water from the jump. Now, Bruce and Alec never had a headline-grabbing explosion like Bruce versus Stallone or Bruce versus Kevin Smith. But insiders will tell you these two could barely stand each other. Why? Because they were cut from the same cloth, but wearing it in very different styles. Bruce was the guy who played tough, talked tough, and didn't bother with Hollywood pretenses. He gave off that Jersey barroom energy, the guy who'll call you out if you're full of it. Alec Baldwin, meanwhile, has always been the loudmouth intellectual, quick with a biting comment, proud of his opinions, and not shy about mocking anyone in his line of sight. Put them together on a set or at an event, and it was basically a contest to see who could out-alpha the other. One story that gets whispered around is from a charity event where both were present. Alec, being Alec, was holding court with his booming voice and sarcastic jokes, while Bruce looked like he was ready to roll his eyes into the next zip code. People swear Bruce muttered something like, "This guy never shuts up," which, if true, is peak Bruce Willis. Not long after, Baldwin allegedly threw shade at Bruce in an interview, calling some actors overrated tough guys who play the same role over and over. He didn't name names, but come on, who else could he have meant? Their tension wasn't helped by the fact that they operated in overlapping circles. Both were leading men of the 90s, both dabbled in action and drama, and both had reputations for being difficult at times. Baldwin had his infamous on-set temper. Bruce had his infamous my way or the highway vibe. Neither was exactly signing up for a Most Cooperative Co-Star award, so when they did brush up against each other in the industry, sparks flew. Fans picked up on it too. When Baldwin hosted Saturday Night Live during Bruce's heyday, some viewers noticed a few jokes that felt a little too pointed at Willis's expense. Baldwin, after all, has never missed a chance to jab at other actors if it gets a laugh. Willis, for his part, didn't exactly laugh along. He wasn't the type to chuckle if the joke was on him. He had that classic stone face that could turn a room frosty in seconds. What's interesting is that both men actually had plenty in common. They were both fiercely protective of their craft, both had massive fan bases, and both were known for being straight shooters in an industry full of phonies. But instead of bonding over that, they clashed. It's like two bulls in one pen. You can admire the strength, but you know it's going to end in a headbutt. In Hollywood, though, feuds like this don't always turn into tabloid wars. Sometimes it's just a vibe, an unmistakable tension that everyone around can feel. That was Bruce and Alec. No screaming matches caught on camera, no lawsuits, no on-set walkouts. Just a steady current of, I don't like you, you don't like me, let's keep it moving. And honestly, that might be the most Bruce Willis move of all. He didn't need to blast Baldwin in interviews or turn it into a Twitter feud. His silence, his infamous smirk, his quiet dismissal, that said everything. Baldwin, on the other hand, couldn't resist the occasional jab because, well, he's Alec Baldwin. In the end, their feud is more of a Cold War than a full-blown battle. But ask anyone in the know, and they'll tell you. These two alphas never mixed well. And if you ever wondered why they never shared the screen in a major way, now you know. It wasn't scheduling conflicts, it was survival. Number 2. Richard Gere, the too serious rival. When you think of Bruce Willis, you think smirk, sarcasm, and a sly one-liner delivered right before something explodes. When you think of Richard Gere, you probably picture soulful stares, Buddhist calm, and maybe a romantic stroll through Central Park in a tailored coat. Put those two energies in the same room, and you can practically hear the record scratch. That's why Bruce Willis and Richard Gere never saw eye to eye. Now, the funny part is, they were never officially cast as rivals in any blockbuster showdown. There's no Die Hard versus Pretty Woman crossover movie, though admit it, you'd watch it. But behind the scenes, Bruce reportedly had very little patience for Gere's brand of Hollywood. Gere was the serious actor type, the guy who leaned into gravitas, elegance, and moral depth. Bruce, on the other hand, was all about grit, sarcasm, and getting the job done without a lot of navel-gazing. Industry whispers say their dislike bubbled up during the late 80s and 90s when both were at the height of their fame. Gere was riding high with films like An Officer and a Gentleman and Pretty Woman, charming audiences with brooding romance and that famous half-smile. Bruce, fresh off Die Hard, was the ultimate everyman action hero. Different brands, sure, but both competing for Hollywood's leading man spotlight. And Bruce, being Bruce, wasn't shy about rolling his eyes at actors he thought were taking themselves too seriously. There's one story that often floats around about a Hollywood party where Bruce cracked a joke about Gere meditating his way through a script. Something along the lines of, "Some of us just show up and do the job. Others need incense." Whether or not the line is 100% true almost doesn't matter. It sounds exactly like something Willis would say. Gere, famously private and not exactly known for his sense of humor, did not find it funny. What really seemed to bother Bruce was Gere's carefully cultivated image. Gere was the Hollywood gentleman, charming, stylish, and politically outspoken, especially about Tibet and human rights. Bruce? He was more of a grab a beer and let's not overthink this kind of guy. In Willis's world, movie stars didn't need to act like philosophers. You clock in, you shoot the scene, you make people cheer in the theater. For Gere, acting was an art form, almost a spiritual pursuit. To Bruce, that probably looked pretentious as hell. And here's where fans got pulled into the drama. Whenever polls popped up in magazines asking who the sexiest man alive was, or which leading man audiences preferred, Bruce and Gere often ended up in the same category. Women swooned for Gere's dreamy eyes, others preferred Bruce's mischievous smirk and rough-around-the-edges vibe. It became this unspoken rivalry. One was the suave gentleman, the other the sarcastic bad boy. And guess what? Bruce always liked being the bad boy. Their paths never really converged on a major film, but Hollywood insiders had loved to talk about how Willis turned down projects Gere was also circling. Was it coincidence, or was Bruce making sure he didn't have to share screen time with him? Hard to say. But considering Bruce's reputation for being brutally honest about people he didn't like, it's not crazy to imagine him saying, "Pass," not doing it if Gere's involved. What's fascinating is how different their careers aged. Gere kept leaning into romance and prestige, while Bruce veered into action, thrillers, and the occasional quirky indie. They rarely overlapped directly, but the chilly vibe lingered. Gere never said much about Bruce, at least not publicly. But Willis's circle often hinted that he thought Gere was phony. And if Bruce Willis thought you were phony, forget it. He was never going to hide it. At the end of the day, Bruce and Richard Gere represented two different Hollywood archetypes. One was the brooding intellectual heartthrob, the other, the blue-collar everyman with a gun and a smart mouth. It's no surprise they didn't click. And maybe that's why fans never saw them on screen together. Because, honestly, with those two in the same movie, the real fireworks wouldn't have been in the script. It would have been behind the camera. And what about the times Bruce didn't just clash with Hollywood heavyweights, but took aim at someone trying to climb the ladder, like the last actor on our list? Number 1. William Baldwin, the lesser. Baldwin Bruce couldn't stand. If Hollywood had a family tree of rivalries, Bruce Willis and William Baldwin would be hanging off the same cranky branch. Now, let's get one thing clear. This isn't Alec Baldwin we're talking about. It's William, the brother who always seemed one step away from really breaking into the A-list, but somehow never quite made it. And apparently, Bruce Willis was not about to let him forget it. Their tension goes all the way back to the early 90s when both were circling the same Hollywood territory. Bruce was riding the massive wave of Die Hard, officially cemented as one of the biggest stars on the planet. William Baldwin, meanwhile, was trying to prove himself outside the long shadow of his brothers. He had a breakout role in Backdraft, 1991, and people thought he might be the Baldwin who would rise above the rest. Spoiler alert, Bruce Willis wasn't impressed. The story goes that the real sparks flew during the filming of Mercury Rising in 1998. Baldwin landed a role alongside Willis, and from day one, the vibe was icy. Willis allegedly saw Baldwin as arrogant, or worse, as someone trying to ride his coattails. Imagine Bruce walking onto set, grizzled and sarcastic, only to find William Baldwin giving off "I'm the next big star" energy. Yeah, you can see how that would rub Bruce the wrong way. Crew members have whispered that Bruce made no effort to hide his irritation. He'd crack jokes at Baldwin's expense, question his acting chops, and make little digs in front of others. For someone like William, already battling comparisons to Alec, Daniel, and Stephen, that had to sting. But Bruce wasn't known for pulling punches. If he didn't like you, he let the whole room know. What's hilarious is how lopsided the feud looked to outsiders. Bruce Willis was already an action legend. William Baldwin, still the other Baldwin in most people's minds. It's almost like Bruce didn't even need to feud with him. There was no real competition. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe Bruce saw Baldwin as trying too hard to act like a peer, when, in Bruce's eyes, he hadn't earned it yet. There's also the rumor that Baldwin once threw shade at Bruce during a press junket, calling him difficult to work with. That didn't sit well with Willis, who, ironically, was already famous for being difficult. It was like Baldwin had dared to call out the Emperor while standing there in a paper crown. Bruce wasn't having it. Fans, of course, ate it up. Whenever Mercury Rising comes up in conversation, someone inevitably mentions the Willis-Baldwin frostiness behind the scenes. And it's telling that Baldwin's career didn't exactly soar after. He did a handful of movies and TV appearances, but the big-time momentum fizzled out. Meanwhile, Bruce kept churning out blockbusters, like The Sixth Sense and Armageddon. Was it all Baldwin's fault? Of course not. But in Hollywood lore, it's fun to imagine Bruce shutting the door behind him, muttering something like, "Nice try, kid." The weirdest part, Baldwin has never really fired back publicly. Maybe he knew better than to poke the bear. Maybe he realized that going head-to-head with John McClane himself was a losing battle. Or maybe he just figured Hollywood had already chosen sides and it wasn't his. Looking back, the Willis-Baldwin clash feels less like a heavyweight rivalry and more like a schoolyard spat, where the bigger kid swats down the one trying to grab attention. Bruce didn't just dislike William Baldwin, he dismissed him. And for someone who already struggled to step out of Alec's shadow, that dismissal probably hurt more than any insult. In the grand saga of Bruce Willis's Hollywood feuds, this one might be the pettiest, but it's also the most revealing. It shows Bruce wasn't just clashing with powerhouse names like Kevin Smith or Richard Gere. Sometimes he picked fights with people lower on the ladder too, just to remind everyone who really ran the show. And in the case of William Baldwin, Bruce didn't just win the feud, he erased it. Before we end on these said feuds, it's worth asking, but how about Bruce himself? What was Willis really like on set in general? Bruce Willis on set, the legend and the headache. If there's one thing everyone in Hollywood agrees on, it's that Bruce Willis brought the same intensity to the set that he did to the screen. Some days, that was magic. Other days, well, let's just say complicated is the polite word. Crew members often described him as laser-focused. He wanted things done fast, tight, and professional. If a director nailed it, Bruce would show up, deliver the goods, and boom, the scene worked. But if he thought the director was fumbling, that's when the infamous Willis eye rolls came out, followed by sarcastic comments that could deflate the room faster than a popped balloon. With co-stars, Bruce could be hit or miss. If he liked you, you got the full Bruce charm offensive, wisecracks between takes, beers after rap, and a teammate who had your back. But if he didn't, let's just say working next to him could feel like sharing a desk with the grumpiest guy in the office. There was no middle ground. You were either in his circle or on his nerves. Interestingly, that same prickly reputation didn't stop people from signing up to work with him. Because the guy was a box office magnet. You knew that if Bruce was on the call sheet, the movie had a shot at blowing up big. And honestly, for every story of him butting heads, there's another about him quietly helping a co-star shine or cracking a joke that made the whole crew laugh. In short, Bruce Willis on set was like a loaded dice roll. Sometimes you got the perfect partner, sometimes the toughest critic. Either way, you were guaranteed a story you'd never forget. Agree on all actors in the list? Let's hear from you in the comment section. And for more content like this, subscribe to the channel for free.